Hello underwater photographers, welcome back to the video tutorial series. I'm Brent. I shoot a lot of underwater photos, and today we're going to talk about back button focus. So back button focus, we hear about it, we read about it. What's back button focus? Well, today we're going to answer that, a bit of a Q&A format. One question, one answer. We're going to try and keep this 2-minute tutorial to just 2 minutes, and we'll kick it off. So let's get the intro going and then back to back button focus. There we go. What is back button focus? Back button focus is where we assign the autofocus drive of the camera to the AF on button on the back of the camera. You could assign this to several other buttons, but in general, the button we assign that autofocus to is AF on because it's ergonomic to reach with your thumb while you're shooting and depressing the shutter with your forefinger. So, why should I use back button focus? Well, basically, back button focus lets you keep the subject in focus until you're ready to shoot. So think about it this way. You've got a subject that's moving pretty fast in the water. It might be closer to you, further than you, and at all these different focus points. If you're not tracking a subject, your camera is going to have to figure out where the subject is and start focusing, and it might rack back and forth. And you might get the shot, you might not, you might totally miss that moment that you wanted to capture because the camera is trying to achieve focus. With back button focus, what you can do is continually track the subject so that the camera already has a subject in near perfect focus, and all you do is shoot and push that shutter button down to capture the shot. So for fast action, for tracking subjects that are moving, back button focus really helps you get those shots in those challenging situations. And here's an important question. Does back button focus work underwater? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You can use back button focus when you're shooting wide angle or macro underwater. One of the nice things is that the housing manufacturers know that a lot of serious shooters like to use back button focus. So what that means is a lot of the housing manufacturers have moved that AF on button into a lever that's accessible with your thumb. And it's very easy to keep your back thumb depressed with the focus drive active and locking on the subject, and then to shoot with your forefinger when you want to capture those frames. Does back button focus work on all cameras? Well, it works on mirrorless cameras and on DSLRs that have that AF on button in a nice, easy to reach spot on the thumb. For compact cameras, you're generally not going to have a back button focus opportunity, so just work on your half depress for focusing and then full depress for shooting the shutter. How do I activate back button focus on my camera? It's going to be different depending on the camera brand you're shooting, whether it's Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic. You're going to have to go into that menu and you're going to have to go into the custom settings where you can adjust the buttons and what those button functions do. So for instance, on Canon, each of the buttons will have several options that you can assign to it very easily. So what I will do is 2 steps. First, on my shutter button, I remove the autofocus drive from the half depress, and then I just push the shutter. What I do is turn autofocus on for the AF on button, and that way when I push AF on, I'm activating the autofocus, and when I push the shutter down, nothing happens at half depress. When I push it all the way down, that's when I capture my photo and the shutter drops. So check it out on your camera. Look in your manual, download the PDF manual online, or do a quick search and you'll be able to pull up a quick tutorial. I'm sure there's lots of forums that have write-ups for your specific camera. So what are the best settings for using back button focus? Well, I've alluded to it already, but you want to be using continuous autofocus. On Canon, that's AI servo or servo autofocus, but essentially continuous autofocus allows you to keep that back button depressed and allows you to track the subject as it's moving through the frame. Now, it might be a speedy sea lion moving through the frame, or it might just be a nudibranch, like a Nimbrotha that's feeding pretty quickly and moving its head up and down, and you want to track that rhinophore, that spot really where you want to focus through the frame and then follow it and then shoot at just that right moment. Aside from that, all your camera settings are the exact same for that style shot that you'd be using anyways. And that's pretty much it. Looks like we're a bit over the 2 minutes, but we tried to get it pretty close. Anyways, if you have questions, leave them in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. You'll be alerted to all the new videos, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.